Well, folks, kick your shoes off and set a spell, because by the time I'm done jawing here, you'll never look at your local squat and gobble the same way again. That humble little outpost of jerky lotto tickets and 12-packs, turns out it's got deeper roots than your Uncle Bubba's mullet. What we're talking about today is not just a corner store. It's a living fossil from an ancient lineage that stretches all the way back to emperors, mud brick marvels, and snow-packed mountain runners. See, long before refrigeration and self-checkouts ruined everything, we humans had a noble, sacred quest, keeping things cold. The original ice houses weren't just sheds, they were feats of engineering, y'all. In China, around 1100 BC, back when folks were still figuring out chopsticks, the emperor had poor saps hoofing it up the mountains to bring down snow just so he could sip on a nice fruit sorbet. That's right, ice cream fit for a warlord. Howdy, howdy, friends and neighbors. This is your old pal B coming to you from deep in the jungles of Java. If you enjoy this episode of Radio Farside, consider hitting the like button, subscribing to our teletype column, and tossing a tip in our jar. Helps keep body and soul together so we can bring this quality stuff to you every week. Thanks, y'all. Over in ancient Persia, they whipped up these big old domes called yakshals. Think of them as prehistoric walk-in freezers made of mud bricks and prayer. They had evaporative cooling, underground storage, and probably a keg or two, if you knew the right priest. Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, they all played the frozen game. Ice pits, snow runs, sawdust insulation. They were doing cool stuff long before Mr. Kelvin came around with his fancy thermometers. Fast forward a few thousand years and we hit colonial America, where rich folks buried blocks of winter in deep pits just to keep their beer cold in July. And buddy, they did consider it sacred beer. Some things never change. Then came the great ice harvest of the 1800s. Yeah, that was a real job, not just a hipster band name. Yankee entrepreneurs started slicing lakes into cubes, shipping them off to the tropics, and changing global trade forever. Yep, we were exporting ice like it was Texas crude. And this is where the great nation of Texas comes in, riding tall in the saddle with what became the beating, beer-soaked heart of local life, the Texas Ice House. Now, the original ice houses in Texas, just simple shacks hawking big old blocks to folks trying to keep their food from spoiling and their beer from boiling. But it didn't take long for 'em to evolve. Some smart soul said, "Hey, if folks are already swinging by for ice, why not sell 'em some butter, and a cold one, and maybe a few dominoes while they're at it?" Suddenly, ice houses weren't just supply depots, they were hangouts. You'd see fellas sitting on picnic tables, knocking back a Lone Star, playing bones, swapping tall tales and oil field lies. Families showed up, kids ran around, and no one batted an eye if you brought your own food, or your own moonshine for that matter. By the 1930s, everybody had their own refrigerator, and the old ice delivery racket melted away faster than a snow cone in August. So the ice houses adapted, selling groceries, snacks, and of course more sacred beer. They became the unofficial town square, bars without bouncers, taverns with toddlers. But then came the big box apocalypse, supermarkets, suburbia, the rise of Satan's own invention, 24-hour self-serve. Chains like 7-Eleven and Stop and Go came storming in, faster than a swarm of locusts on a peanut crop. And the classic ice house was left hanging on by a thread of beef jerky. Still, some of them held on. In places like Houston and San Antone, ice houses morphed into backyard-style bars. Beer gardens with taco trucks, lawn chairs, live music, and that same old porch-sitting story-swapping soul. And let's not forget the titans of modern convenience, Buc-ee's and Circle K, still carrying the torch, keeping things cold and hearts warm, even if they're a little too shiny and algorithm-friendly for my taste. So the next time you roll your eyes at a neon-lit squat and gobble on the corner, remember? You ain't looking at just another gas station. You're beholding 3,000 years of mankind's sacred battle against lukewarm beer. You're looking at a direct descendant of Persian yak chails, Roman snow pits, and Texan ingenuity. Biteth thy tongue and sucketh it up. Because if it weren't for the noble ice house, you'd still be sitting on your porch waiting on the ice wagon while your six-pack sweats itself into sacrilege. That's it for this episode of Radio Farside. Like what you heard? Mash that subscribe button, toss a coin in our tip jar, and tell your Uncle Bubba we said hey.